And everybody was just so happy. So,
Are you going?
oh my god.
Do you have the ability to see the future?
I don't remember your dreams that I have a lot of dreams. Like I have a dream.
Did they ever come true?
Not really. But maybe this one will.
Maybe.
I think
So good luck.
Your writing is so nice.
No,
Are you serious?
I want
You found it.
It's like perfectly straight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember the warm up?
Run it opposite. Remember.
Run in opposite. High five.
I could sit and watch this kid all day.
That's good because he's generally there every day.
I've never been in that room.
It looks like he's playing like basketball or something.
I think he's fishing.
Oh, that makes sense.
Here we go.
Uh-oh.
Teacher, slow down, teacher.
If I were to throw this question out to you, and we are talking about immigration, not now, but back, not the first wave of immigrants. We're acknowledging the Native Americans who may have in fact immigrated here, but they were the original. They're 0.0. The first wave of immigrants would be the English who settled the 13 colonies. That's the first wave. They now, by this time, and by this time I mean 1830s-ish, 1840s-ish, they now consider themselves natives. They're here. They're the nativists. And now a new wave of immigrants. How many of you, just curious here, how many of you are of English ancestry? You can trace your family tree to the original 13 colonies. My ancestors were on the Mayflower, so I'm better than you.
My ancestors were, she was tried as a witch in the Salem witch trial.
My great, really?
Yeah, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, she died awaiting trial at the Salem witch trial.
She's a witch.
Yeah. I am.
Probably just. Okay. How many of you now can say that you know that you are of Irish or German descent? Okay, that's the group we're talking about here. The second wave. Why? Why did the Irish and the Germans come over? We know why the English did. Religious persecution, primogenitor. Okay, got it. What about the Irish or the German? Yes. You're exactly right. Fun little fact. A disease wiped out the potatoes in Ireland. That same disease wiped out the potatoes in all of Europe. It's just that the rest of Europe figured out maybe we should plant other things. Where the Irish, it was potato and potato juice and creamed potatoes for dessert. So it sort of wiped out the Irish plate. Very good. Were there any other reasons why German or Irish came over? Or, I'll open it up, Chinese. Why did they come over? Go ahead. Yes. We said they wiped out the potatoes. Anything else going on? Go ahead. Very good. The belief that over there in Europe, there's no financial future. Come to America, there's land to be had. You're the master of your own destiny. Very good. Anyone else? Anyone have any inkling about European history in the 1840s? A lot of revolutions going on over there in Europe in the 1840s. And so you flee areas of war. That makes you a refugee. So they were refugees. Kind of a cool map here that shows with every arrow, it indicates numbers of people. So you can see that most immigration, again, in that second wave, comes from generally what region? Europe. Okay, very good. Europe. We do have some immigration from Asia, Japan, and China. This will become kind of interesting because what happens, the pattern is that the immigrants attempt to come, they're resisted by the natives, and that's either a successful resistance or an unsuccessful resistance. The first wave of immigrants were resisted by the natives, but it didn't work. Sorry, Indians, you failed. The second wave of immigrants, Central and Eastern Europeans, along with the Irish, come. The natives will once again attempt to resist that wave of immigration. Largely, it failed, But then here's your third wave. The Japanese and the Chinese will increase. We are now in the fourth wave. The natives are here resisting immigrants from mainly Latin America. That's where most of our immigrants come from today. It's a pattern that will continue. Wherever that next wave of immigrants go, if American history is any indication, by that time, we will be a much more diverse country with Latin American becoming part of the white team. I mean, it's true. 100 years ago, if you were Irish or Italian, you weren't white. You were Irish. And today, Irish is white. Italian is white. That will continue. The white team will expand, and then there will be resistance against the next wave of immigrants. That's what I just did there is context. It's contextualization, the big picture. Okay. Europe is very crowded. There's war. There continues to be rules about primogeniture. And so the immigrants come over, specifically the Irish, who come over because all they planted were potatoes. They didn't diversify. Rule of thumb, don't just plant one thing in that garden. How about planting a tomato? And when they came over, this is, again, another pattern that is fairly consistent. When you are from the motherland, whether that's Ireland or Germany or today, Vietnam, Hmong, the Twin Cities is the leading Hmong population in the world other than Southeast Asia. And the reason is the same reason why there was a concentration of Irish in New York City and a concentration of Chinese in San Francisco. Think about it. You are of Hmong descent, and you arrive in Los Angeles. There you are. You get off the plane. What's one of the first questions you ask? Where are my people? Exactly. Where'd they go? Where are the others like me? The Twin Cities. Oh, sounds lovely. And then they get up here and they discover winter. Right. Okay, same thing. The Irish land, they see the Statue of Liberty. Where are my people? Queens. Okay, and then they go to, and they create an Irish enclave. Anybody that was in sociology remember that term? No, I mean the term describing the Irish enclave or the Chinese enclave or the Italian enclave, where they're a minority, but they dominate that little area.
Oh, shoot.
It's called a little. It's a little. That's a noun. It's a little. You are looking at a little. God, this doesn't work. It's called a little. It's an ethnic neighborhood within a larger urban population dominated by one specific ethnic group. Any of you ever been to San Francisco? Did you visit Chinatown?
Yes.
Okay, that's a little. It's an ethnic neighborhood. Little. Yep. A couple things about the Irish that sort of made them unique. They moved to the north. All immigrants moved to the north. You know, think about the South. You got your big old plantations. You got some white guy dressed in all white sitting on the front porch petting his dog Belvedere. Meanwhile, the slaves are in the fields picking the cotton. If you're an immigrant, if you're an Irish immigrant, do you think, now that's where I go for a job? No, of course not. You go to New York. You go to where the factories are. So the South at this time, so this is diversified, not industrialized area. The North is messy and polluted, and it's got many different languages and many different groups of people, and it's urbanized and diversified, and to the Southerner, disgusting. Well, okay, that's a good point. Okay, the Germans. I saw many of you raising your hand that you were of German descent. They fled war, German warfare in the 1840s. The creation of the state of Germany. That's what's going on here. The United States is older than Germany as a political thing. The United States is actually one of the oldest nations on earth. Now, China's got us by a few thousand years, but we're up there compared to the rest of the world. We are actually a very old nation. We're older than Italy.
What's a new?
What's a new nation? A new nation. South Sudan is a pretty new nation. It's like 3 or 4 years old now. We are quite a bit older. Yes, exactly. Right. What the Germans and the Irish brought with them was their culture. And here's where it gets kind of fascinating. Part of that culture is drinking alcohol. You got to remember, back in the Middle Ages, no one drank water. That's where you took dumps. Why would you drink water? What you did was you consumed alcohol, beer, ale, wine. That was safe. You didn't die. Think about this. You want to be safe? Drink alcohol. That's not a sentence you hear too often today, right? But you want to be safe? Drink alcohol during the Middle Ages. And that is why during the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church absolutely had a monopoly on wine production and ale production. They made wine in the monasteries. There was money to be made. Anyway, so it's part of German and Irish culture to consume alcohol. Well, when they come over here, they bring that culture with them. And the natives don't like the immigrants. And so what they do is they say, well, what don't we like about the immigrants? Their culture. They drink and crime and slums and poverty. How do we protect American culture? Anyone know what this leads to?
That one thing where they limit drinking.
Very good. Laws against alcohol production. You are looking at the origins of that. A rejection of culture leads to a rejection of your practices to keep America pure. Go ahead. Prohibition. Prohibition was an attempt to keep America pure. Prevent them from becoming Irish and German. Kind of interesting. I know this is going to sad you, but this is our last slide for today. We have other things to do. Okay. So this is a slide about immigration, and this is a slide about the nativist reaction to immigration. It follows a pattern. It's the same pattern that we see before. Try and get a good look at this picture. I'm going to give you, a minute to really try and see what's going on here. If you need to get closer and see what's going on here, be my guest. I just have some questions as you look at this. Think about this. Who are those people to the right? Who are those people? What are those? What's that building in the background? What is that? What are those creatures coming out of the water?
Immigrants.
Okay, and then try and see what the message is here. What's the bigger message?
They represent the immigrants.
Okay. Mr. Barry will have our attention in a bit here. Okay. Who are these people? They're the natives. Look how white and pure they are. And look how the brave Man is protecting the little white children from the creatures that are coming up out of the water. All right? What are these creatures? I mean, literally, what are we looking at? We're looking at crocodiles, all right? But look again. Look again.
There's a face.
That thing is not a mouth. It's a hat.
They're people.
That's a hat.
They're actually people underneath them.
Very good. These are papists. Papists. What building do you think that was? That's the Vatican. Very good. That's the Vatican. These are, good God, Catholics. Ah! Catholics! No! And you know what Catholics do? They drink wine. My God, in their churches, they drink wine. Catholics from Italy. They're bringing their papacy and their alcohol, and they're going to eat our white children. No! You can't do it. It's horrible. Ah! This is hard to understand today because today Catholics do not make up a majority of America, but they are the second largest single religious group. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. The largest religious group is the nonists, as in none. No religious affiliation at all.
I meant none.
Not nuns.
Oh,
Zero.
I thought you meant none.
No religious affiliation. When I go to church, I'm in the forest looking at trees and birds. That's it. Okay. These people called themselves nativists, which is ironic because they're the descendants of the original white immigrants. But they didn't see it that way. They saw themselves as nativists. The Indians don't count in their world. Okay? They were mainly Protestant, and here come the Catholics. That's why they're anti-Irish. They're anti-Irish because they are of Protestant religious affiliation, and the Irish are of Catholic affiliation. We don't consume alcohol in our religious ceremonies, and the Catholics do. You want to prevent the Irish from coming over? Don't let alcohol become part of American culture.
So are nativists Catholics?
No. No, the nativists were Protestant.
Oh.
The immigrants are Catholic.
Oh, okay. I was thinking, okay.
Yeah. A flag, and I would say very much synthesis-wise, you're seeing similar things going on today. These white supremacists always have American flags. And that is because their version of America is white America. America is the land of white people. And they continue to have a worldview that immigrants are not welcome. I'm talking now. That immigrants are not welcome. This is a white nation. And a Christian nation, but not a Catholic nation. Christian, but not Catholic. Okay? This happens to be from about 100 years ago. Nativist Americans associating the flag with nativism. And just as true today, I would argue. It galvanized into the development of a political party. They called themselves the Know-Nothings. The Know-Nothings. They called themselves the Know-Nothings. There's a reason. Okay? They believed in nativism. So they're anti-foreign. And they engaged in aggressive behavior. And again, I would say a fascinating study, which has probably been done, is to compare, contrast the know-nothings of 100 years ago with the white supremacist groups that exist today. That would be a pretty fascinating study. I have a feeling that Venn diagram would nearly overlap. The reason they call themselves know-nothings is because they knew that their views were It's sort of like today, right? You talk to white supremacists today, and although I do think they've been sort of emboldened by the latest political events of the last few years, they can't just come out and say, "Yeah, I'm a racist," right? You can't just do that. So they hide their language. They use clever phrases to not appear completely racist. We need to protect our families from these immigrants because they're criminals and they're rapists and they're drug dealers, and so we gotta protect our way of life. Okay. The response when asked things like, do you hate Catholics? Their response was, I don't know. I don't know.
Do I?
Dang! Dang! What are you saying? This group would have an impact on elections. Not because any of their candidates won. This is the importance of third parties. Third parties very rarely actually win elections, but what they do is they make the two dominant parties acknowledge, that party's got a point. Let's take their issue and adopt their stance. And you see that all the time. Okay? This is the group behind no drinking. Right? Not because there's anything necessarily dangerous with alcohol, but because if we don't drink, then we won't become Catholic and we won't become Irish, and our country will be pure. That's the logic. Okay. The end. We are done.
With notes.
With notes, yes. I have gifts for you. I have 2 gifts for you.
What? No.
Welcome.
They are good.
We're visiting our favorite restaurants again.
Merry Christmas.
My favorite Hanukkah gift is this one.
Do you really get 8 days of gifts?
I don't. Yeah.
Your
Something happened
JoJo?
to it.
Is that what they're called?
JoJo fat.
These things are fat. Very thick. Looks like Noah's Ark.
The remainder
So I
of
just
today
watched a
largely
movie,
becomes a nice chunk of time to
Whoa, we
think
got-
about your
This is
written
stuff.
essay.
No, they're on the back of
This
it.
is a
Oh.
Gotcha. I was like, girl.
It is our favorite 2 Italian restaurants.
Uh-huh.
Why does that have to be Italian? I'm going there.
I have one open mod,
Magic.
and then I have another open mod, and then I have more open mod.
And now I have to go to gym.
Or have them together instead of
Okay.
a single.
I will hand out the second handout in a bit here, but I want to read this. You've already seen this, but this is your template for your second paragraph. Here it is. Only substitute. Take out the word peppers and substitute Federalist or Democratic Republican, depending on who you disagree with, whoever you're disagreeing with. Take out the word atmosphere and substitute your issue, and then you can go through this. This follows the format I want you to follow as far as the writing of your second paragraph, and you might be asking, what format is that? This one! So here you go.
We have that. I have that.
I'm sure many of you do. Do you need a new copy?
I
That is
wanted
my
to
new
go.
I got one.
This Pollock spilled water on mine.
Oh.
Tell me.
Who needs a new copy?
What are all of you guys doing? My topic that I did for the presentation. Hey, is Barry gonna tell
Are you
us
doing
what
our
was
topic,
down?
Maddie?
I think I'm doing the
Nullification or
yeah, and the sedition act. Nullification and sedition act. Well, no, there's like two things under one. For like, there's one for your thesis and one for your roadmap. On the sheet, it like I don't have my folder's down there and I can't bend that way.
Want me to grab it?
Sure.
I don't bend that way.
Yeah, I'm doing free speech and the sedition act. Like they're like one topic of free speech, but the sedition act is a part of it.
Oh yeah, I'm doing sedition act too.
Yeah.
I'm definitely doing nullification.
I understand the free speech one as well.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know.
So let's do this little exercise.
Sorry? Oh, apparently she wanted one.
So what you're doing is you're looking at number two, and there are 6 goals.
Oh, here it is.
And what I want you to do is look at this. Make sure you're looking at the correct side. It's the one that say, some people argue that, not the other one which says the atmosphere of. Look at the side that says some people argue, and I want you to see if the writer of that paragraph has achieved those 6 goals that are listed under number 2. And I want you to match up what the goal is with the actual sentences in the paragraph on peppers. Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes here. Go ahead.
Wait, what's the side?
That happens to be paragraph number 4.
So the conclusion.
Wait, so we're not doing 3
No,
or 5?
or 5.
Okay.
Correct. Your essay will be a 1, 2, 4, 6. Okay.
I don't know.
So
Blue book essay.
our first paragraph would be like the side, just the other side of that argument.
First paragraph is
This is your second paragraph.
Yeah, so it's the other side of the argument.
Bro,
Yes.
really?
It'll be
Lobster.
What?
look on this. You were going to end up writing 4 paragraphs. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay.
I realize you're at different paces here. Some of you are already done and some of you aren't. What happens then is agree with your table. Discuss the paragraph on peppers with the people at your table. You know, look at the sentence and then say, okay, this looks like it's the topic sentence. Okay, this looks like a sentence on document evidence. And this looks like, okay, agree at your table, please.
For this one, the decor of peppers is subtle. Would that be part of historical evidence, but with like analysis in it?
Yeah, I think they'd be kind of like
It's like together.
mixed together,
Yeah.
I guess.
What paragraph is
Is there any analysis?
You don't think there's any analysis?
Well, of the historical evidence.
Can I use your current one?
Analysis is where you're interpreting how the reader should see the evidence presented.
I kind of did. I think they're kind of all together.
Yeah, I stopped it right here. Yeah.
So, like
These like right
I
next to your TV.
kind of like what you're saying though, in that there is a blurring of analysis and historical evidence. Those two things blur.
I agree.
To the good writer, they're interwoven.
Yeah.
More basic writers will say, here's an example, and here's what I think it
I
means.
feel like this is something I would like to be attracted to at the book fair.
I haven't been to a book fair for so
I
long.
know, I kind of miss it. I want to go to one, like the middle school one, and get those pens with the eyes bulge out of.
Oh
I got
yeah.
one of those monkeys.
Does it feel like a weird day?
Yeah,
It
Maddie
does.
said that earlier.
Yeah, it was 10 o'clock and it felt like it should be 1.
It's
And this morning I forgot how to write the number 4.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
When we were doing our classes, I was like,
Wait,
number 4.
how do you make the number 4? That's crazy. Wow.
One more minute.
Okay, so let's just.
I don't know where to stop for the next one.
Give yourself permission, by the way, to sort of blur lines, overlap things. Sometimes it's historical evidence and sometimes it's analysis. Those two things blur. Right? Using historical evidence to prove document evidence would almost automatically involve analysis. Analysis is you putting meaning and importance to an example. This matters cuts.
I just had it all as
What paper is that?
refuting.
Liv,
What would you refute?
Liv,
refuse.
come here when you're done.
I just said, however, Matha was wrong to suggest the paper's atmosphere and
It's a
location.
blue book
The
essay
idea.
and it's due.
Okay.
And then here they're comparing it to
That-
something else, which is
yeah.
why I thought it was such a
That makes sense.
because they're saying it's like this situation. Then this one I did as synthesis and
On slavery?
or
So you
and
did one sentence for
analysis.
that one.
I
Yeah.
haven't even assigned it.
I'm just gonna
Sorry,
make
it's
it
more
purple.
confusing.
I'm gonna make it purple so nobody will know that I'm not there.
Bye,
I
Mr.
just ran out
Norwell.
of colors, you know?
Hope you find your dad. Thanks, Mr. Norwell. We have a debate in our family because who is crying? Who is the one crying? It's not Mr. Norwell. He went under the water.
It's the penguin.
I think it's the walrus.
Yeah, it's the water makes it.
All right,
Wait, so after this, yeah.
here we go. I will read the sentence. You tell me what's going on here. Some people argue that Pepper's atmosphere makes it a great restaurant, but Pepper's atmosphere leaves a lot to be desired.
Claim.
It's the claim or the topic sentence. There we go. Here we go. Walter Matthau, a food critic who works for the St. Paul Pioneer Press, points out that the decor of Pepper's is pleasant and inviting. Matthau argues that the location of the restaurant puts anyone in close range of all that the Twin Cities might have to offer. Matthau, page 5.
Document evidence.
Document evidence. Notice it is multiple sentences long. Okay? And also notice, are you listening?
Yes.
It's not quoted! Not quoted! You don't quote! Don't quote! Okay, let's keep going. The decor of Pepper's is subtle. Each booth has a painting of an Italian scene, whether it's the Duomo in Florence or the spires of St. Peter's in Rome. Soft music plays in the background, and the lighting is just dim enough to soften the edges of a long day. I'll keep going. The location, Woodbury, does put Pepper's in the general vicinity of major events in the metro area, and I will stop there. What is all that?
Historical and analysis
It is historical evidence and analysis
put together.
which
Can I
seems to prove that, hey, Pepper's atmosphere, it does seem okay.
I forgot about it.
But I'm telling you that before I continue, a lot of you forgot to do that in your previous Blue Book essay. You told me what Zinn claimed, and then you immediately said, but he's wrong, without acknowledging that there might be some evidence to suggest, hey, Zinn does have a point. You have to present nominal evidence and then hit me with the however. Okay, however, Matthew is wrong to suggest that Pepper's atmosphere and location make it an, oh, I think I missed it. No, I didn't. However, Matthew is wrong to suggest that Pepper's atmosphere and location make it an ideal restaurant. What is that?
Refute.
That is refutal of historical perspective. Now, I haven't provided any evidence yet, so I'd say this is sort of still analysis, but who cares? If a family were in Los Angeles for a Disney World vacation, that family would be silly to go to a suburb to eat at a restaurant where there are plenty of good choices right next to the theme park. Trying to argue that Woodbury is an ideal location ignores the fact that there are other restaurant choices much closer to the city's venues, including downtown venues. Very good. It's synthesis, it's analysis, it's historical evidence. There's actual historical evidence here. And there's analysis to refute the argument. Yes, dear. Oh, thanks. Disneyland. Okay, fine, whatever. Okay. No, you're right. You're right. It is. Okay. That's how you write your second paragraph. Okay?
Don't be confused.
What are you confused about?
Historical evidence first and second.
I am confused on
Is the evidence acknowledging that Pepper's might appear to be a good restaurant?
This is the same as where the blue is.
Okay. Mr. Barry's going to take our attention in just a couple minutes, but otherwise, I'm going to allow you to look again at your second paragraph so that we can look at it with very sharp scissors and pincers and really rip it apart tomorrow. Okay?
Come to class tomorrow with the
Come to class tomorrow with your second paragraph or a good faith effort at your second paragraph completed. If you are the kind of person that likes to work ahead, the next thing we're going to do is the other side, which is on this, number 4. Your 4-paragraph essay will be number 1, 2, 4, and 6 on this sheet. Cross out 3, cross out 5.
Hold on.
1, 2, 4, 6. Okay? Do you have any questions? I told Barry to be here at 40, so in about 5 minutes he will show up.
He will.
I opened my water.
My gum tastes really bad.
I'm gonna start off by copy and pasting my second paragraph into my, and then I'm gonna just